Hello and welcome. I'm Claire Feldman, your host and guide on this journey to thriving in private practice without the burnout. Are you a passionate therapist who's struggling with the entrepreneurial side of things? Do you wish you could serve great fit clients at times that suit you? Are you seeking financial stability so you can continue doing what you love? If so, then you're in the right place. I know firsthand the difficulties of navigating the business aspects of therapy, from building a website to managing social media, but I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. Together we'll explore how you can build and grow your dream practice. So let's get started. Hi everybody, and welcome to this podcast episode where we're going to be asking the question, is it actually possible that you could fill your private practice without having any social media presence at all? I wonder what you think about that. I'm surprised this is something I haven't really talked about much before, and I only just had the realization a few weeks ago when I was organizing. I recently did a blogging workshop, and it was basically a workshop that was all about how to get started with blogging in order to improve the search engine optimization of your website and drive more traffic to your website. If you have missed that, and that's something that you might be interested in, then definitely go and check out my website, www.prosperinprivatepractice.com, and under the tab courses you will find the replay of the blogging workshop is in there. The feedback, not to toot my own horn, but the feedback was really positive, and it's a really great place if you feel like you're a bit clueless and a bit lost around blogging. But when I was planning that workshop and working through that workshop, I kind of had the realization that my own private practice that I'm still working in sort of 2.5 days a week, that none of my clients ever came through social media. I did when I first kind of started in private practice and started specializing in my niche, which is binge eating. I set up an Instagram account. It's still there. I'm not active on it at all. It's just a holding account. But I spent quite a lot of time on social media. I spent a huge amount of time learning to get to grips with reels and graphics and writing content. And it was a real, for me personally, it was a real time suck. And when I was then moving into mentoring, I knew there was going to be no way I could possibly run 2 different social media accounts, my private practice account and then my mentoring account. So I made the decision that I was just basically going to stop being active on my private practice account and just focus on the mentoring account. What I then had to think about, and this is probably about maybe 18 months ago or so, what I then had to think about is I need some way of consistently ensuring that I am getting traffic to my website, that people are finding me when they're going onto Google search, and that there's other ways that people can be referred into me. I'm on Psychology Today, and that's initially where really most of my inquiries and most of my clients were coming through. But I put a real concerted effort into blogging when I made the decision that I was done with social media for my private practice. And actually, it's the blogging for me that completely transformed the volume of traffic that was going to my website, from literally no organic traffic at all to now over 300 visits a month on my website, and I get bookings coming straight through my website. So that for me, I had the realization, God, I haven't really talked about this at all. I haven't actually really shared the fact that my clients don't come through social media. I still have a thriving practice. I still have inquiries that come through, all without having social media. So I thought I need to talk about this a little bit more. And that coincided with also I was having a one-to-one call with one of my community members, and she was just feeling so frustrated around social media. She felt like she was trying to do everything. She had invested a huge amount of money in getting some support around social media. She had a content plan. She was doing so much, but it wasn't really leading to inquiries. It wasn't really converting. We just sort of had a really open conversation about, how do you feel about social media? Do you enjoy using it? Is it where your ideal client might come to find a therapist just like you? And so we basically decided, let's just park it for now. Let's just leave it. And where might be the best place to concentrate our efforts? When we actually went into the back office of her website and started looking at the stats, we realized again for her, as with me, there was absolutely no organic traffic going to her website at all. So she went away tasked to write a blog. I think the blog she was writing was around finding how to find an anxiety therapist in her local area. And then she sent me a message about a week and a half ago to say that that one blog is now responsible for, I think, a 35% increase or something in traffic to her website just from that one blog alone. So that has really motivated her. This is where she's going to focus. We call blog writing long form content. And that's basically where you, as it suggests, that you're maybe writing more detail and writing at greater length. So long form content would be the likes of blog writing. It could also be recording a podcast. It might be doing a YouTube video. It might be things like that. Versus short term, which is things like just doing a social media post or recording a reel, for example. Now, I must be really clear that I am not anti-social media at all. I find I have a bit of a love-hate relationship, but I have found that certainly from my mentoring side of the practice, that my Instagram account has been helpful. Um, where I have the hate side of it and the frustration side is I feel like it is a bit of a time, and certainly I know from chatting with loads of other therapists, they feel that it just takes so much of their capacity, so much of their mental capacity, so much of their time trying to think about, not only just think about their content ideas, but then the writing, the creating, the editing, and that whole process that can feel quite time consuming. With regards to social media, with regards to the likes of Instagram, I think how you are using it is obviously really important. So if you are somebody who you don't have a niche, for example, you don't have a brand that's aligned to your practice name. Maybe you're using your Instagram really ad hocly. Maybe you're just resharing or reposting other people's posts or other people's quotes. Maybe you're not engaging in the stories, or you're not sharing stories or asking questions or engaging with your audience or things like that. If you're not doing anything like that at all, then I wouldn't be surprised at all if Instagram isn't being effective for you or it's not helping you to attract clients in. If you're doing all of those things, then it could be that for you, actually, Instagram is a great platform to be on and that it might help you to draw in and attract your ideal client. The point I'm getting at is that if you are going to use social media, you do need to be consistent with it, but you also need to have a strategy around how you are using it. So is it clear, if I was to look at your Instagram profile, for example, would it be clear that your brand is consistent, that your logo is on there, that I can recognize if I'm scrolling through mindlessly? Would your post stop me in my tracks and I would recognize your branding or recognize your content or recognize the niche information that you are putting on there? I think it is a really well-suited platform if you're also maybe quite a creative, if you enjoy that process of creating graphics or creating content or creating videos. I think if you're naturally quite a creative kind of person, I think you could fly with social media, but we're just not all like that. So the reason behind this podcast episode is to say, do not stress yourself out if you really do not enjoy being on social media. Do not stress yourself out if you are spending literally hours and hours and hours a week trying to come up with content, trying to come up with posts, and then it just feels like it's all falling flat on its face. It is perfectly okay if you have experimented with it, been strategic around it, you've used it for a while, and then you've come to the decision, actually, do you know what? I actually just don't enjoy this. I don't like social media. I would rather not. It's perfectly okay for you to make a decision to step away from something and decide that maybe it's just not for you. We all have different strengths, different abilities, and I think it's possible for us all to find a way of marketing ourselves and leaning into where our strengths and our qualities lie. Um, so what I want you to maybe have a think about is like what type of marketing might be more suitable for me. So if you're someone that actually in-person connection is really important for you, that you like seeing people face to face, you like seeing people in person, then you might be somebody that would do really well being involved in local business networks and going to local business meetings and networking with people there and introducing yourself to people there. You might do really well making contacts in these sorts of network meetings and perhaps even offering to go in and do a wellness talk or deliver a workshop or something in some of these organizations. Going into that sort of environment, going into a corporate or a local community environment or somewhere where lots of people's eyeballs can kind of get seen and be in front of them, like things like that might be a really, really good way for you to start to get more clients or bring more clients in. Word of mouth tends to be overlooked, but actually is such an important, such an important opportunity. It's such a valuable way of actually attracting more of our ideal clients is through personal recommendation. So if you're a people person, how can you get in front of more people? Where would they hang out? Where could you go? Where could you offer to do a talk, to run a webinar, to do something like that? And to be able to be seen in front of a high number of people rather than just one. So that might be something for you to have a think about. If the thought of standing up in front of a room full of people, that would make me feel a little bit sick. But if the thought of doing that is like, oh God, no, that's not me, then maybe you're the type of person that actually, when you put pen to paper and you write beautifully and you write from the heart and you write authentically. And maybe people would really enjoy reading, some of the things that you're writing about. So in that case, maybe blog writing. Maybe that might be a great way to share your unique skills, your expertise, your knowledge, and in a really authentic way. Not only is that a great way for potential clients to read about you and get to know about your work or get to know your area of specialism, but that could also be incredibly helpful for your website and for driving more traffic to your website as well. Maybe you're not so great with the writing, but you can talk. So right now I'm chatting with you guys through podcast. My podcast strategy, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this. I had this conversation with someone yesterday about who also does podcasts about what's your podcast strategy? How do you write your script and how do you prepare it? I was like, I hit record and I just talk. That is my strategy. I'm not recommending it, but it seems to work for me. The feedback I get around the podcast on the whole tends to be pretty positive. So if it ain't broken, then I'm just going to keep going this way. So podcasting, if I think about what ways do I market myself, what ways do I enjoy, podcasting works for me because I can sit here. I'm currently sitting in a great big ugly fleece, makeup free, and I just hit record and I start talking. And I'm talking about things that I know. I'm talking about things that I'm familiar with. I'm talking about things that I'm comfortable with. And all I need to do is talk about that. And I am imagining that I'm talking with you right now and sharing what I know and sharing information that I hope might be of value and of interest to you. And I distribute that through my email list and I share it on social media. I share it in different places and then people get to listen. So a lot of people who end up joining my membership community or end up working with me one-to-one will often say, oh, I listened to your podcast episode and I really enjoyed it. Or it was really helpful because I wasn't sure how to approach that. And now I've listened to your podcast episode. I know how to do that. So for me, this is where I am concentrating my marketing efforts now because it works for me. This works for me over trying to create content much more on social media. So if that sounds like, actually, do you know what? I think I could do that. I don't have to be maybe on camera. I'm not great with written form, but I know I can explain what I mean. Then maybe podcasting might be something that you might be interested in. If the thought of setting up your own podcast seems incredibly overwhelming, then maybe something you could think about is, could I become a guest on someone else's podcast? Is there another therapist out there that it would be of value for me to be on their website? Or is there just another professional, maybe a health professional who has a great audience, but my ideal client is likely to also be in their audience, and I'm not going to step on anybody's toes, but I can go on and be interviewed about my area of expertise. And that's a great way for a whole new audience to get to know my name and then come and check me out, check out my website or whatever, and get to know me that way. So that can be a great way to market yourself as well. Or one other thing that is completely and utterly overlooked is YouTube. And this is something I might start to dabble in a little bit more. Obviously, it means being on video, but the great thing with YouTube is that you don't have to go live on it, that you can pre-record your video. And it could be that you're recording a little video for your ideal client in some way that you are offering value, insight, sharing your expertise, sharing some tips, anything that is going to be really, really helpful to your ideal client that you record in a short YouTube video, upload to YouTube. The great thing about YouTube is it is an amazing search engine. I think it's actually owned by Google. So when you think about when you're looking for some help with anything, we go to Google, don't we? We go to Google and we say, how do I, or how to, we type in those types of questions. And often what comes up in the search results will be YouTube videos or other websites and things like that. So YouTube is a really untapped marketing channel and platform for therapists. We don't think of using it, but there is one therapist who uses it incredibly effectively. Her name is Sarah Desange, and she is the binge eating therapist. You will find her. She's on Instagram and she's on YouTube as well. I actually interviewed Sarah earlier in the year as part of the Prosper in Private Practice Virtual Summit that I ran. And that interview focused solely around her experience with YouTube. Now, she has gained massive following on both Instagram and both YouTube. I think it was something like 30,000 maybe on Instagram and something quite similar on YouTube. But she says for her, actually, YouTube is what she absolutely enjoys. She uploads one YouTube video a week, and that is where all her marketing efforts go. And she's actually just leaving Instagram, and her YouTube drives a lot of traffic to her website, and she brings all her clients in primarily through people visiting her YouTube channel. So she specializes also in binge eating. So she will produce lots of little videos that are answering the type of questions that her ideal client is asking. So her ideal client, like mine, might be typing into Google, how do I stop overeating at night? And so she's creating a video on YouTube all about how do I stop overeating at night. So when somebody puts that into the search engine and is looking for it, they then end up finding Sarah's YouTube channel. So again, if you aren't comfortable perhaps with being live, or you don't really like using Instagram, or you don't really like using Facebook, but you're comfortable enough talking to camera and you feel that you have enough knowledge and enough expertise, which you absolutely will, that you could talk about some of these topics just for a few minutes that might be helpful and insightful for your ideal client, then YouTube could also be another possibility. So what I have just shared with you there, and I hope you're not sitting going, oh my God, how on earth would I do any of these things? But I just wanted to share with you that these are alternatives. They're alternatives that as therapists, I don't think we think about when it comes to marketing our private practice. I think we automatically think about our directory profiles and being on there. We think most of us will then think about our website and having a website next. And then we tend to think about social media, Instagram or Facebook. And often we don't think beyond that. But the reason that I'm sharing those other forms of marketing is that there are lots of other ways in which you can market yourself. And those are just a couple that I've touched on just to maybe get you thinking, is social media for me? If it is, then that's absolutely cool. But if you're trying to force yourself, and this is like a square peg, round hole type of situation, you're trying to force yourself to do something and you're really not enjoying it, or you're not seeing any return from it, and what might be worth considering, is there something else that I would like to explore, to try? The biggest thing for me of why I recommend long form content, so the blog writing, the podcasting, the YouTube, things like that. The reason why I recommend those is that they don't have any expiration date on them. So when I ran the blogging workshop recently, I was able to go into my Google Analytics and was able to show everybody on the workshop in the back office of my analytics all the traffic that's going to my website and where they are coming from. And a significant percentage of the traffic going to my website every single week is from blogs. And it's one or two blogs in particular. And the one or two blogs in particular that are driving the majority of this traffic into my website are actually blogs I wrote about 2 years ago. So a 2-year-old blog is still driving lots of traffic to my website. So, and the same goes for YouTube and the same goes for podcasts. There's no expiration date on it. Whereas you could spend literally half a day creating a reel that you think is amazing and you think is brilliant and that you hope is going to go viral and bring you loads of new followers and inquiries and potential clients. And you could spend half a day doing it. It could potentially bomb and nothing happen with it. But if it doesn't pick up or get engagement or any traction, it tends to kind of disappear and it's not going to be seen. It has a very it has a short shelf life with social media. So that's why I prefer the long form. I suppose the difference with the long form is that when you start doing these things, that it's a longer term strategy. These are slow burn strategies, but I would much prefer to be focusing on the slow burn and longer term strategies, because once they are embedded, once they're in place and once they're working for you, they just continue to work for you. So there's not that pressure of having to do something new, having to do something new, having to post again, that it's something that can just kind of tick away and run in the background for you. So that's why I'm always encouraging members in the community and anybody that I work with is I totally appreciate you want clients bums on seats. You want people right in front of you right now, and that's short term. And there are things that we can focus on and that we can look at in the short term to try and get clients in front of you. But you don't want that to be your strategy ongoing, where you're constantly almost like firefighting and desperately trying to take action to get people in. What you want to be thinking is embedding and getting foundations in place, knowing who your ideal client is, knowing what your marketing strategy is, knowing what you can show up or produce, what content that you're able to do on a consistent basis that feels aligned and authentic and works for you, and that you are working on that, knowing that the payoff could be several months later. The payoff for my blog writing strategy that I didn't start to see any return on that for a good 6 to 9 months, but now it's working for me in the background and I don't need to do too much to it at all now. So yes, you want to have clients coming in through the door and be doing whatever you can right now, but to not lose sight of You want a sustainable practice. Perhaps you have a goal of someday being able to leave EAP work or leave other employment, and you would love for your private practice to be your main source of income. That's absolutely possible, but only if you have those longer term strategies in place. And that might look like a website that is really good quality, that has plenty of traffic going to it. That might look like having a free offer on your website, people signing up to your email list, you sending out regular newsletters, building up that know, like, and trust factor. All of that is something that takes time. I hope I haven't scared you off or completely overwhelmed you. Like, we're not taught this. Like, we're not taught this at all. I put myself through loads of coaching programs and workshops and endless YouTube searches and mentoring and all sorts of stuff to learn all of this. And a lot of it I've learned as I've kind of gone along as well. That's why I created the membership, because I teach all of these things inside the membership as well. And it's something that is going to take time. If you have never learned this stuff before, if you've not done any kind of marketing before, it is something you're going to have to be really patient with yourself, that you're going to need time to build and develop these skills. If you are interested in learning more about actually what ways can I market myself outside of social media, what might that look like? Obviously, I've mentioned some ways today, but I am running a free webinar. If you're listening to this in real time, the webinar is coming up next Friday, which is the 20th of September. So I'm running one at 11 a.m. on Friday, the 20th of September. And then I'm running a second one and doing the same one live on Monday, the 23rd of September at 7 p.m. I'm running them both live at 2 different times in the hope that it's going to be more accessible for people to be able to come along live. And I will be reopening the doors to my membership at the end of those webinars, and there will be special bonus opportunities for people who are interested in joining. And just a heads up, if you have been following me for a while, listening to the podcast or on social media, and you've been thinking about working with me, you've been thinking about maybe joining the membership, just to let you know that when the doors open, they're only going to be open for 10 days, and then they're going to close again on the 30th of September, and they're not going to open again for the rest of this year. So if you've been thinking about jumping in with this bonus offer and at this price, then now might be the time for you to come on board and check it out. But I will put the details of the webinar. If you're interested in attending, I will put the details of the webinar sign up link in the show notes below. But that's it for today's podcast episode. I hope you find that helpful. What would be absolutely amazing is if you did really enjoy it, you found value in it, do please share my podcast with other counsellors, other therapists, or coaches that you think would find it useful and would find it of value. It would really mean a lot to me if you could do that. But that's it for now, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon.